I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
All right, what's happening, everybody? We're back. It has been quite a while, but we are so happy to be back talking about Season 2, Episodes 2, all the way up through 5 of the Titan Games right here on AfterBuzz TV, on the Titan Games After Show. My name is Ty Matthews. Joining me, as always, Miss Alyssa Acosta-Millan. How you doing, Alyssa?
I'm so great. I'm so glad that we are back and we're catching up on all the episodes.
Absolutely. And just to get it out of the way, I mean, there is so much happening right now. We appreciate everyone for sticking with us through the extended break. We want people to keep paying attention to everything. We obviously we stand by everyone that's still out there protesting out in the streets. That is absolutely so important for us to get out there. But we definitely appreciate everyone sticking with us through the break, and we hope that the conversation continues to happen. Now, Alyssa, there is so much to get through. I mean, the entire rest of the Central region occurred while we were on our break. What were your just kind of general thoughts on everything that happened in the Central region?
I was excited to see what would progress because I didn't know what would happen like more towards the end when they brought some of the limited competitors back. So it was cool to see some of them that were like 3 instead of 2 competing with each other and how that progressed along. I love the hype of the audience as always. I love The Rock being there. I love seeing the families cheering on their loved ones. I think that's super important to have that support. I love the competition. Me being in the military, I know all about competition, and I love that they're going out there. They're giving 110%, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, but I love that they have a chance to come back and redeem themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And we hate that we can't get into the details of every episode because we saw so many amazing competitors and so many amazing matchups. But one thing I do want to talk about is just the Ironman Joe Thomas and the fact that it really seemed like he was absolutely unbeatable on Mount Olympus up until he faced off with Matt Chan in the finals. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, him being, a pro bowler and being so successful in his career and then coming in and facing other people that are trying to take his position, he did so well. And I know when you have the momentum going and you keep beating people, of course you want to go all the way to the end. And for him to lose in that last heat, I know that must have been hard for him. But I kind of like the fact that he got dethroned, that somebody was able to get in there and beat him because he was doing so good. And it was funny because he did so many rounds of Mount Olympus, so he knew what to expect. But just because he knew what to expect, obviously it was shown that doesn't mean that he's going to continue to hold that title. So I love that somebody came in there and took it away from him.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And not only that, we also saw we saw a brand new Titan on the women's side with Dani Speegle defeating Chantae McMillan and then retaining in the finals against Jaime Seaman. Just absolutely incredible performances.
Yeah, I was really surprised because Chantae, I know they all really want it, but she just did so well. And then when it came down to the 3 of them, when Chantae had to go back and compete to go to Mount Olympus, and then she didn't end up winning again, I know that must have been so hard for her to have gone on as a Titan for so long and then to lose and then try to come back and win it, and it didn't work out for her. But she did overall really great, so she should be proud of herself for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that's so fascinating to me is seeing especially, Dwayne Johnson's handpicked Titans kind of come back and sort of have to fight their way back to Mount Olympus. Seeing not only Chantae McMillan, but also Claressa Shields attempting to kind of regain that title. And kind of in keeping with the theme of the Titans defending that title, in the very first episode of the Western region, we saw both Jessie Graff and Victor Cruz defeated in their very first runs on Mount Olympus.
I was really surprised at that, especially from Jessie Graff. I mean, I follow her. She's an amazing person. She's a stunt woman. She's an American Ninja Warrior. And I thought that she was going to go a lot farther than she did. So I was definitely surprised, but I love the fact that she still has a chance to come back and reclaim that title.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Now, bringing us up to speed to this week. I mean, we're already up to season 2, episode 5, y'all. The second episode in the Western region. On the men's side, we've got Exodus Rogers taking on Mitch Harrison. And Mitch Harrison, coming out of Kenai, Alaska, security guard, is the Titan Games' first trans competitor. Was an absolute all-star basketball player, as Michelle Harrison before he transitioned. And so that, we talk a lot about the stories that get told on this show and how incredible they are, and this was just such an amazing, fascinating story to hear.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, that we get to hear the stories behind them. It doesn't go just straight to the competition. We hear a little about their background, where they came from, any struggles they had to go through, any fitness that they started at and then just excelled at. And the fact that Mitch came on the show, I thought was so amazing, because I think at the end he had talked about how he was finally able to compete as his true self. And that must have been so amazing for him, because he felt that he was in the wrong body and now he's living in the right body. So I thought that was so awesome. And I was so excited to see him compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting seeing the matchups that we get, because this, for example, Mitch Harrison was the bigger of the two, but Exodus looked like he had the strength advantage. And I know that in another episode that previously aired, we saw a little bit of footage from the Titan Games Combine. And so it makes me wonder if people are maybe matched up in kind of similar strength categories, because so many of these matchups that we've seen and so many of these challenges that we've seen are so close and so neck and neck.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you that makes sense. It's just kind of like when you do like MMA or anything like that. You're matched up in your weight group, so I think it's more competitive that way. So it gives everybody, it doesn't give anybody like the upper edge. Especially with those two, it seemed like it was neck and neck in so many competitions, and you really didn't know until the last minute who was going to take each heat.
Right, exactly. And speaking of these amazing stories, also we've got Exodus Rogers, who is just like the personality coming out of Exodus. I love just like everyone throwing up the X all over the arena, and working as a deputy in a juvenile detention center, really working with these kids as far as physical fitness and everything like that goes was so interesting to watch.
Yeah, I love the fact that you saw him, he was FaceTiming or Skyping with the kids back home, and he was showing them that it doesn't matter where you come from, that you can do it. And I think that's such a great story, because a lot of people feel because of their backgrounds or their upbringing or whatever, that can hold them back. And he was there to show them that you can overcome anything and it doesn't have to hold you back. So that was a really great story. I love both of them, and I love that they were put up against each other because they both really wanted it so bad.
Right, exactly. Now on the men's side, the very first event that we see is Launchpad, and everything was very close and very neck and neck. It seemed like Mitch kind of got the lead early on, but Exodus just came back and was just, I mean, kicking the hell out of these slabs.
You have to realize that what you see from the Titan Games is that nobody is ever out. So somebody could have the lead to begin with, and then out of nowhere, the other competitor just comes from behind, even if there's like 2 seconds left or whatever that they have remaining, and they just take it all. And it's so impressive. And for this one with Launchpad, those are not light slabs. They're really heavy. I think they're like 250 pounds. So you really have to have like really good grip strength and really good leg strength. And
Mhm.
the fact that it was neck and neck, I love that, because you never knew, like I said, who was going to take it. But then Exodus ended up winning that heat.
Exactly. Yeah, you can never really predict what's going to happen. It takes me back to when we saw Caleb Red and Doc Thor take on Matt Chan in Resistance, and I think going in, everyone really kind of favored Doc Thor, and Matt Chan just like dominated that game like I've never seen anyone dominate a game on the show so far, just like chucking barrels almost two at a time over the edge.
Well, just like the Golden Boy and the Rock, I believe both says as well, you have to dig deep. You have to be in there. And we know that you're gassed out, you're tired, you're hearing your families and the crowd chanting for you. And you just have to give it like that 5 or 10 more percent that you might not think that you have. And that's where it really comes from, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's what I always, wonder. We still don't necessarily know just how much time elapses between these games, between these challenges. So you not only have the exhaustion from the exertion of that particular game, but obviously that's getting compounded as the night goes on. um Next up we see them compete in Over the Edge, and Over the Edge is such an interesting game because it's, you're looking at 75 feet of chain and then 75 feet of rope, and it's not just strength, it's grip strength. And so it's so fascinating, like we said, between Mitch being bigger and Exodus being stronger, you really see what comes into play in a game like this.
Yeah, that's got to be like one of the toughest tug of war obstacles I've ever seen because you're pulling so much weight. And it's interesting to see some of the competition because some people will pull it this way and some people will put it on their back and then they will pull it and using a lot more of their leg strength. So it
Right.
definitely works for different people. But I really thought Mitch was going to take this one. But then, at the end, Exodus was able to pull it out and win it. So congratulations to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we saw Kelly Valdez using her experience as a firefighter to throw that rope over her shoulder and just use that much more leverage. And it's just so fascinating seeing these competitors approach these games, from different perspectives with different strategies.
Exactly.
Uh,
It works for different people in different ways.
right, exactly. Yeah. So Exodus wins both Launchpad and Over the Edge, clean sweep 2-0, goes on to face Noah Palisha on Mount Olympus. Um, and watching people compete on Mount Olympus is already exciting enough, but they were so close on this one. We've seen a lot of people kind of run away with Mount Olympus, but this one, at least for the first half, was so even.
I was really excited to see this matchup, and I was kind of nervous because Noah was one of the brothers from the last episode who competed against his older brother, and he ended up beating him. And they're both military. Like I said earlier, I'm in the military. So, of course, I was rooting for Noah to win against Exodus. I mean, I was supporting them both, but, being a military person myself, I really wanted Noah to win. It was so awesome to see that his brother came back to support him and he ended up taking it. So I hope he goes on further and he's able to keep that Titan championship.
Right, absolutely. That's been one of my favorite things of this season was seeing in that previous episode, seeing it come down to basically Army versus Air Force, brother versus brother, and but with it being such a friendly rivalry, we still see Noah's brother in the stands rooting him on with the rest of his family cheering for him, which, like you said before, is so refreshing to see. But it really looks all the way into the cage crawl. Everything looked so close. But Noah from there really started gaining a lot of ground, and we saw Exodus fall hard coming off the mountain. That's got to be another thing that you think about is we've seen some nasty spills so far.
But he did get up and, he still came back and you could see he has a lot of like upper arm muscle. So when he was pulling that ball, I was like, wow, he's really going to like gain some ground. I think like you said earlier, that fall did affect him a little bit. But he was able to come back. He just wasn't able to win. But Noah had already done Mount Olympus last episode. So the ones that are returning to keep their championship, they have an upper edge because they've already done the competition. So they know like what it takes to win. So when somebody else beats them at that when they've already done it is pretty awesome because they've never done it before. But Exodus was so close and I really love him as a competitor. So I hope when he comes back that he has a chance to go to Mount Olympus again.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we saw him falling, fall hard, not only coming off the mountain, but also when he was pulling that ball and chain, he went complete, just like flat on his back on the ground. And at that point, they talk a lot on the show about the lactic acid building up, and so that's
Right.
just got to compound everything. But ultimately, yeah, we see Noah win and retain that title, and it's like you said, having that lay of the land and that familiarity has got to be beneficial at least a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I kind of wish, for Mount Olympus, they would change things up a little bit just because it's different every time. Maybe switch up the obstacles just so the person doesn't have the upper hand. I mean, like we've seen with Joe Thomas, he didn't win every heat. Well, he won it up until the end, but I
Mhm.
kind of wish they would change it up a little bit just so it was different every time and the newbies didn't have a disadvantage.
Yeah, you got to keep them guessing. Now on the women's side, we've got Paso Robles' Margot Alvarez, the winemaker, taking on Kelly Stone, a physical therapist and belly flop champion. You never know what kind of stories you're going to hear on the show.
Yeah, that was so cool. I was like, I want to say like I didn't know that was a thing, but I probably did. I just didn't
Right.
know that people compete because that just like when they showed her belly flopping, I was just kind of like cringing a little bit because I'm thinking that must really hurt. And she said
Yeah.
sometimes it does, but I guess if you compete at it, you kind of get used to it, or like how to like make your body not have it hurt or something like that.
Right, yeah, exactly. Now we see them compete first of all on nuts and bolts, and nuts and bolts is such an interesting challenge to me because you not only have the physical aspect, but you also have to think strategically. You have to be able to tell, have I gotten enough weight off to try and pull this down?
I think some of it is because they're side by side, so they can see each other. So if you're competing against somebody else and you can see them, and they're running back to try to pull the wall, they might have no weight left. They might have a little bit weight. You might have the
Mhm.
same, and it's like you said, how much are you able to pull? Because I think with both of them, they still had over 200 pounds left. So they're absolutely able still to be able to pull that wall down, but it's going to take a little bit more time because that's you have that extra 200 plus pounds. So I was kind of nervous when they both left and they still had so much weight on because I'm thinking, did one of them just leave because the other one did? And they were like, okay, like I just have to, give myself some more time and I'm going to go with that person just so that they don't win. But then Kelly ended up going back to take off some of her weight because she wasn't able to pull it and it just wasn't enough.
Exactly. Yeah. I think by the time she went back, it was maybe a little too late. And I think what you said might have been the case. I think I think I remember Kelly was the one to first try and take the wall down with one full post of weight still on, and I think Margot kind of saw that it was kind of now or never. And normally when we watch people compete in nuts and bolts, it seems like they're completely content to just take everything off so that it's that much easier to pull the wall down. But yeah, I think by the time that Kelly went back around, Margot basically already had it. The chain was really almost already down. So Margot takes the win in nuts and bolts, and then we go into my personal favorite, Lunar Impact. What did you think about this?
This is one of my favorites as well because it's all about who can get up there on the platform first. Because we've seen some competitors in previous episodes where they've run up there and they've had a lot of speed on somebody else and they were able to push it so far already. This one was a little bit neck and neck for a little bit. But you got to see like how gassed they are up there pushing. I mean, because you're not only pushing that slate, you're pushing another person who wants it just as much
Right.
as you. So it's very tiring. And then I've said in previous episodes, you don't know if that other person is taking a break. If you knew that, that would give you a little bit leg up to push them farther back. But you don't
Mm.
know that because you can't see the other person.
Right, exactly. And it's like you said, it's really, so much of it comes down to beating your opponent up that ladder. And we always see that massive moment of impact when one person gets up first and just is able to slam it right into their opponent. And in this instance, Kelly makes it up first, and eventually it was so interesting to me seeing her completely lock her arms out fully, which seems like it could be a risky move on a challenge like this.
I was thinking the same thing too, because they definitely pointed out, like, wow, she completely locked her arms. That could have given her a little bit of extra strength, but she could have also injured herself there as well. She was able to push back for a little bit. And I love an underdog that is like so close to the edge and then they push back and they gain momentum. But then in the end, it wasn't enough because Margot pushed her back and won this heat as well.
Exactly, exactly. The second clean sweep 2-0 that we saw of the night. So Margot Alvarez goes on to take on Kelly Valdez, who's defending the Titan title for the very first time on Mount Olympus. What did you think about this competition?
I love seeing the females compete. I mean, I love seeing everybody compete, but as a female myself, I just love seeing other females compete and seeing how they're going to compete against each other. The fact that Kelly was coming out so strong and then she had some issues carrying the log, that definitely set her back. I was definitely hoping that she would make up a lot of time, and she did a little bit, but that initial log really slowed her down. So it wasn't enough for her to pull ahead, but she definitely gave her all. And I'm glad that she didn't quit and she just kept going, because, like we've seen before, just because you slow down like 2 or 3 minutes behind your opponent doesn't mean that they're going to win, because you never know where they're at in the competition and how much strength they have left. So you could end up beating them.
Right, exactly. That log lift seems to do so many people in. It's not only heavy, but it's just so cumbersome to try and kind of, lift it up high enough and still try to make your way up that ladder. I love the analogy that they use where it's like helping your friends move, but your friend isn't helpful at all. It's like you're trying to move a couch up a flight of stairs.
And I want to talk about a couple episodes, our last episode, real quick, because when Jessie Graff was competing at Mount Olympus, she fell a little bit behind, which I was surprised. But then she ended up going into the wrong cage. She went into the cage that her competitor was in as well. And they were like, wow, this is the first, we've never seen this before. But her competitor was up fast enough so that they weren't like right on top of each other. But I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, how you get down there as long as you actually do the competition.
Yeah, exactly. And you never really think about that as a possibility. And it was cool that they didn't, just like stop everything and kind of start it back over. Because by that point, you're already doing so much work. You just kind of have to let them go and just see how it plays out, see how it happens. And yeah, it's like you said, luckily there was enough of a lead that it didn't really seem to make much of a difference, but that would have been so interesting, like if they had both tried to go in at the exact same time, what that might have looked like.
Well, I think it probably was Jessie was just gassed and she was tired and she just kind of went to the first cage that she saw, and she ended up gaining a lot more time. So I was excited about that. But for this competition, I love that Margot absolutely killed it with the ball and chain, because those are not light whatsoever. And you're already
No.
gassed from completing the first part of Mount Olympus. And then when you come to this part, you're like, oh crap, like I still have to pull this huge ball to go all the way to the end to be able to break through. But she did such a great job.
Yeah, pretty much after that lead that she generated on the log lift, there was really no catching up to her. She kind of ran away with the rest of the course at that point.
Yeah,
And that's got to be, yeah.
they both did such a great job. And I know when you get to Mount Olympus, you've already beat other people before, so you really want it. And Margot, I know she said that she was doing this for her sister that passed away. So I think that gave her the extra oomph because she really wanted to do it for her family.
Exactly. Yeah. Covering shows like this and covering shows like American Ninja Warrior, you see so many different types of stories, and so many of those stories involve personal loss. And so, there's such a variety of motivations and of drives for people. Some people are doing it for themselves. We saw when Shantae was on, she was in the Olympics, but she was really kind of striving to go even further. And in stories like this, yeah, you see Margot really really doing it for the memory of her sister Kristen. And so yeah, seeing her just kind of run away with it is so inspiring when even just making it on the show, like we saw from the combine, is impressive enough.
Yeah, they said that there were thousands of people that were trying to get on the show. And I'm really interested to see how they pick people because I'm sure everybody has a story. Everybody is really into fitness. Everybody really wants it. So I would love to see more behind the scenes of how they go into picking people for the show.
Exactly. Yeah. It's enough of an accomplishment just making it on, just making it through that process, let alone, winning one competition, two competitions, even making it to Mount Olympus. But then to just utterly destroy the course like this is so awesome to watch. So yeah, so we've got, coming out of this episode, we've got Margot becoming a new Titan. So we've already seen 3 Titans on the women's side just in the Western region.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how things are going to be for next week because after Joe, he was the longest Titan that held his position. And now we see newbies that are taking the position. So I'm excited to see it every week, how that changes to see if somebody dethrones them.
Right, exactly. And I'm so curious to see if Noah can hold on to that championship
I
going
hope he
into the Western finals.
And I hope they have more siblings on this show. If not this season, but definitely if there's a next season, I would love to see that because I think the competition, it's already there so much. But when you have siblings that are competing, I think that just adds like so much more because it's bragging rights, like they said. And this is something I talked to my brother about. Like, I would love to see him on the show, and I would love to compete against my brother on the show. I'm not gonna lie, I probably wouldn't do as great as my brother. I would definitely try my best, but I think it would be so much fun to compete against my brother in a show like this.
Right, absolutely. Especially, yeah, with there being a full decade between the two, and like we said, with them also being in separate branches of the military, you get so many different layers of competition.
Yeah, I think that would be so awesome if they switched it up a little bit and maybe did like a brother sister competing against each other or a husband and wife,
Sure.
maybe like male versus female. I think that would be really cool as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who knows if we see a season 3 of the Titan games, who knows what we might see. Um, so because we have so much to talk about in this episode, we don't have a Titan of the week for this week, but we can get into our predictions for the rest of the Western region.
I'm very excited to see how Noah will do. I really hope. I mean, it's also like, because he's my military brother. I really hope he does so well. I think people might underestimate him a little bit because he's not really like a big buff guy. But I think he did so great. And I love the fact that his brother is there supporting him. So I hope he goes really far as well. Margot, I think she definitely earned it as well. She did a great job. And I would love to see them hold their titles for a little bit longer than just one time because we've seen in the past that they've been switching it up, which is great. I love that too. But when you become a Titan, I mean, you want to hold on to that title. And I just keep thinking about the fact when they are both standing there at Mount Olympus and they're getting ready to start, even if you won before, there's got to be a little bit of nervousness there because you want it so much and you don't know how it's going to play out until you either win or lose. So I love the fact that there's just so much, I guess, like oomph in the competition that I cannot wait to see next week because I feel like it always keeps us on our toes because we never know if there's going to be an underdog that comes back and just surprises us all.
Exactly. I think it's like you said, because Noah doesn't have the bulkiest frame, I think that leads people to underestimate him. But we've seen his credentials, we've seen how many obstacle courses he's completed, and the with the medals to prove it. And so I think I see Noah going all the way, becoming the Western Regional champion. On the women's side, I think we might see a come from behind story with Jessie Graff. If anyone has seen her on American Ninja Warrior, she's already such a fierce competitor. But if she has attempted something and maybe come up short, I think she's got that much more steam to work with, that much more motivation. And so we might just see her retain the title in the finals.
Oh yeah, I mean, coming in as a Titan, obviously The Rock picked you for a reason because you're the best at what you do. So of course, I love how they come in there, especially like with Joe. They all come in really cocky and say like, you want to be a Titan, you have to beat a Titan, and they really are the best in what they do. And the fact that some people are able to take that title away from them, that's got to make them feel, some type of way because they're talking so much smack, but you do have a second chance. So, like you said, I think Jessie is going to do very well, and I hope that she does come back and she ends up going back to Mount Olympus because I think this time she'll do a lot better.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the second episode of the Titan Games After Show this season on AfterBuzz TV. Now that we're all caught up, we'll be back next week to talk season 2, episode 6. Alyssa, where can people find you?
You can follow me at Twitter and Instagram at Alyssa_Costa.
Absolutely. And as always, you guys can find me on all forms of social media, specifically Twitter and Instagram, first and foremost, at Ty Matthews PMA. Thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be right back here, same time next week, talking about the Titan Games all over again. But until then, peace.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.